And to be honest, it kind of terrifies me because I have kids in my program and I'm rolling with them. I'm like, you're so fucking good that in 5, 6, 7, 8 years, I'm fucked.
What's the most efficient path to victory against this particular opponent?
He's dropping off for the choke here. We could see the finish. It's looking tight. Tight Delbra.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Essential Jiu Jitsu podcast. I'm your host, Matt Kwan. The Essential Jiu Jitsu podcast is everything you need to know about Jiu Jitsu. And we are back from our 2-part mini-series on the history of BJJ. I hope you checked out those episodes. They were a lot of fun. A lot of good study went into that. And it's always good to know the, history of the sport that we love so much and the figures that sort of brought Jiu-Jitsu to different levels at different times in history, where the sport came from and all the adjustments that happened along the way. It was a lot of fun. So guys, check out that mini series, okay? The history of BJJ. But before we get into today's topic, I would like to please ask you to like, share, and subscribe to the show. Comment if you can. Tell your teammates about the show if you enjoy it. And I really appreciate all the support. If you do want to support to the channel, I will leave the links at the bottom. Check out my online academy. So far, that is the best way you can support the show. Link is below. Okay. Today's topic is preparing kids for competition. This is something that I get asked about a lot, mostly because on a local level here in Vancouver, my team does pretty good in competitions. My kids' team, I feel like we've got a really good formula right now, and we've got some really talented kids in there. And I just want to share my insight as a coach and a gym owner and as an instructor and mentor to these kids, some of the training that we do and, mindset and things like that. So we'll get right into it. Before we do that, I just wanted to discuss the Portland Open, the IBJJF Portland Open that I did a couple weeks ago. I didn't talk about it on the last 2 episodes because it was essentially a history podcast. But here I'll just recap. If you haven't seen on social media, I got a silver in Masters gi and then a bronze in adult no gi, both for middleweight. So not the results that I wanted. Definitely some tough lessons learned. Like the guy that I fought in the gi, he was bigger and stronger. I couldn't do anything to him. It was pretty tough. He was a strong opponent. And of course, as you guys know, if you listen to the show, my gi is not my best game. Honestly, I'm a lightweight, but because of my rather thick midsection, it's hard for me to get down to featherweight, which is what people my height, a lot of the time, they're featherweights. And, my torso is pretty thick. I almost have the torso of like a 200-pound man, honestly. Like my rib cage is bigger than it should be for my height. So it's hard for me to get down. I'm considering doing Vegas Jiu-Jitsu Con coming up, possibly at lightweight. We'll see. I feel comfortable at middleweight and no-gi, though. I won my first match against a gentleman from Atos. Can't remember his name. Daniel Selther, I think his name was. Anyways, I got a heel hook. It was a fun match. And then the second match, I lost to Josh Bakula, I believe his name. Bakaloa. He's from GB Kirkland, just below us here in Washington. I've known Josh before he's visited my school. He trains with my professor, Rob, sometimes. Really kind guy, nice guy, ex-MMA fighter, cancer survivor. He's beaten a lot of good guys. He's fought a lot of different guys. He's beaten guys, household names, guys like Josh Hinger, Johnny Grippo, PJ Barch, beaten a lot of really good dudes. Nice guy. Lost in a referee's decision against him. Actually, one thing that was really cool in the match was I pulled guard and I wrestled up and I actually dumped him on his back and I passed his guard, but he managed to put a guillotine on the wrong side. So normally if I get caught in a headlock and I wrestle up, as long as you're on the other side, there's not usually a play that your partner can make. However, he had like a high elbow and a strong grip. So as I took him down and I was passing his guard, he had me in this headlock with my legs on the wrong side. And I felt myself starting to go to sleep. And I was like, shit. Like I tried popping my head out, couldn't do it. Tried posturing, couldn't do it. Tried framing on him, couldn't do it. And I basically had to bail back to the bottom position. We each got an advantage. And we each started, it happened almost off the mat. So we reset and that's just my fucking stupid cats fighting. Don't worry. They try and fuck up every single episode that I do. And then as we resetted back in the middle of the mats, I was like going to sleep, which was kind of a crazy feeling. I was super fuzzy as the referee was telling us to go back to the mats, and I was just like I gotta come to here because I'm getting extremely dizzy here. And luckily, my head cleared up, and I was able to keep fighting. But I almost went out, and it was a great match. It was super tight. Guys, if you sign up for my online academy, you have access to all of my competition footage. All the way back to the blue belt days, even I have some old footage in there. And it was a great learning experience though. But I did get a win in my gi division against a guy, Gustavo Bessa. I believe he's the owner and head instructor of Brazilian top team Happy Valley. I think it's a place in Oregon. I've never visited Happy Valley, but he's beaten me twice before in the gi, and I had my third match against him, and I was able to win. I swept him and passed him. So there's definitely good takeaways from this tournament, and that's really what tournaments should be about. You compete enough times, you're going to lose. You compete enough times, if you don't suck, you're going to eventually win, and there's usually always good things we can take away. I will say though, it was fucking frustrating. I went in there in IBJJF, maybe it's my fault for not being extra diligent, but my gi didn't pass gi check. They tried to slide the little thing into my sleeve and it didn't go past my elbow, and so I had to use one of my friend's gis. Corey from Island Top Team, he was a nice guy, gave me his gi. That was fucking frustrating. And then also I made it through gi check in my no gi division and everything was good. I was about to step on the mats, and then the fucking ref tells me, your rash guard has gray on it, so you can't use it. I'm like, are you fucking kidding me, you guys? So anyways, I, again, borrowed Rob Bernacki's sweaty rash guard after he won gold in the Masters 2 or 3 middleweight division. He cleaned house in that division, and then I borrowed his disgusting sweaty rash guard. So thanks, IBJJF, for your strict gi and rash guard policies. But hey, you know what? Learning lesson, and at least I still got to compete. And I guess it's on me. I should have known. And that's a teachable moment, right? Always bring an extra gi. And I think it's important to bring an extra gi that is a different cut from the one that you have, right? Don't bring two gis of the same cut because you might not pass. Make sure your elbows aren't extremely tailored, I guess, like my gi was. And no gray in the rash guards, just 30% of your color of your rank, and then white and black. I believe that is all that is allowed. Anyways, you learn something new every day. Upcoming things for me, we got the ADCC Vancouver coming up August 19th. I'm signed up for Masters and Adult at the 76 kilogram division. Looking forward to it. Followed by Jiu Jitsu Con, which I think is the week after. Jiu Jitsu Con, aka Masters Worlds. I'm going to make a run at all three divisions, Jiu Jitsu Con, gi and no gi, as well as Masters Worlds. Going to be fun. Sending a team down there. We're already in camp, as we always are. Let's talk about preparing kids for competition, okay? So the first thing I want to just discuss is the aspect of training, okay? So the physical training, the daily training in the practice room with these kids. First of all, I think it's a really important thing for every instructor, every gym owner, assuming that you want to have kids that compete and you want to have students that compete, set up a competition class, at least once a week. This is super important. This is a chance for the elite students, the more higher level kids, to go in there and train, and you can show them things that you might not be able to show them during the week. Like a prime example would be things like headlocks, guillotines, omoplatas, more of an open rule set, maybe more dynamic moves like barambolos and things like that. Certain competitions will allow guillotines, katagatames, head and arms, buggy chokes, omoplatas, all these things like Grappling Industries, ADCC. So just because IBJJF doesn't allow these moves, that doesn't mean that there aren't tournaments out there that these moves aren't applicable to. And I think it's really important to arm your students with the knowledge to deal with these positions, at least to be able to get out of them. And guillotines are so natural just for us as humans. If there's a street fight and there's someone throws punches and then we decide we don't want to be standing and striking anymore, someone shoots in and then they get their head wrapped up. It's so important, I think, to teach kids how to get out of these front headlock positions. So we do a lot of sparring from front headlocks. I put them in the omoplata position and I say, okay, here's a game. So again, we'll talk about like games and ecological approach, but I say, hey, like you need to get out of this omoplata position. If you're attacking the omoplata, your job is to submit the other person. Use the omoplata to get to triangles, kimuras, arm bars, etc. Right? So they learn how to play games around that position. And I think that's a really good way to do things. I'll talk about that more in a sec. But competition class, very important. Our competition class doesn't really consist of like a whole lot of drilling, okay? Like speed drills and things like that. We don't do that. But we will do like active drilling versus resistance, ecological approach style games, and of course, mock matches and lots of rounds, lots of sparring. And like I said, it is kind of, it's not invite only, but you do have to be an active competitor to attend. And, you can't just be like one of the kids in the junior kids class who just shows up and, kind of goofs around. Like it's more for the serious kids. So having that extra class a week, very, very important. Okay. Another thing we do in training is we emphasize the rules. And this is huge. I've advocated for this a lot on the podcast. My methodology as a coach and as a competitor is a huge emphasis on the rules, because the rules at the end of the day, like I could teach you how to do an arm bar, I could teach you how to pass the guard, retain the guard, all that shit. But what wins competitions a lot of the time when there's two high level competitors of the same level, same attributes, very similar skill, right? A lot of the time it's who can play the rules better, who can make less technical blunders based on the rules. So I always tell the kids, whatever tournament we're training for at the moment, we're going to emphasize the rule set of that competition in training in terms of submissions, how the points are scored. We go into situational positions and certain scenarios. Oh, you're down points or whatever, and we can avoid points in ADCC if we turtle, etc. Right? So always think about the point system when you're teaching kids jiu-jitsu, not just teaching them moves, not just teaching them techniques and whatnot, but give them a context as to when these competitors are going to use these moves, and that's through the understanding of the rule set and how to play to the rule set. Because maybe you're one of those guys that is like, oh, I hate the point system, or sub only is the best way, or I hate EBI system. It's like, yeah, that's fair. Okay, we all have our rule sets that we like and that we don't like, and our criticisms and whatnot. However, at the end of the day, if you're signed up for a competition, it's smart to play to the rules of that competition, and your grappling will change. If you're in a no time limit sub only match, the way you fight and the way you plan your match is and should be completely different from, let's say, an IBJJF competition. Okay, so another thing that I think is really, really important is to just keep it fun, to make kids want to come to class. I think it's really important as a coach when you're building, a team. It doesn't matter if it's kids or adults. Honestly, it has to be fun when you're building a team with kids in it, and these kids are going to tell their mom and dad whether or not they enjoy going to class. It's really important to make sure that you try and make it a fun time. So things that make it not fun would be like taking things over seriously, being like too much of a hard ass, not really building relationships with these kids, emphasizing that winning is 100% of the journey and all that stuff. Winning's important and it's ideal, but it's not 100% of the journey. Keeping things light, keeping things fun. Yes, you're their mentor, but also having like a friendly relationship with these kids. And as they get older, they might want to come to you with issues that they're having in life. And it's important to be that person. Okay, so-and-so's having problems at school, or, they're starting to get interested in relationships and things, and they want to come talk to you because maybe they want someone else to talk to aside from their friends and from their parents, and they trust you, right? So I think that keeping things fun and light and having a good relationship with these kids is super important. And that way they're just gonna want to go to class. They're not gonna need their parents to motivate them to come to class. They're motivated to come because they enjoy the training, they enjoy the environment. So that's really, really important. Is it should always be fun. Okay, let's just quickly touch base on the ecological approach. If you don't know what that is, check out what episode was it? 11, 12? I can't even remember. A couple of weeks ago, we talked with Greg Souders of Standard Jiu Jitsu, and we discussed the ecological approach. Again, this is essentially just learning through self-organization and using situational sparring, or games as he sometimes calls it. Sometimes he doesn't. Using games to ingrain certain scenarios and build certain skills organically in the student, as opposed to me just showing a technique and saying, okay, everyone drill this technique. It's like, it's basically always using live resistance when we're building skills. And I love the approach. You know, Greg got a lot of hate online because of uh, how he conducted himself on the podcast. Guys, I just want to say, Greg, from what I know, I've met him once and I've spoken to him a couple times. I think he's a great guy. Maybe he comes off a little bit arrogant to some of you guys out there, but I think there's a lot to learn from his methodology. And all these gi guys got butthurt because he said the gi is boring and we should just get rid of it, and a lot of people took offense to that. They called him condescending, especially to me. Guys, I didn't feel that way. I thought it was an excellent episode. Definitely check that out. But the ecological approach in the training room, I think, is super, super valuable. This reminds me a lot of the previous episode that we talked about in the history of BJJ, when we discovered that Japanese Jiu-Jitsu was taught mostly through kata, which is a pre-organized, choreographed set of moves performed on a non-resisting opponent. So this kata style is not really ideal versus live resistance if that's what you're training for. Whereas randori, which is what Jigoro Kano and Tanabe and Maeda, this sort of new style of training based around reality, live resistance, this randori style training, which is the basis of judo and BJJ, I would say, at least if it's done right, that this style of training, I think, is way more important. I used to teach kids and be like, okay, guys, gather around. We're going to practice this move. Let's all practice it. Okay, now it's time to roll, right? Like, that's pretty standard, I would say, in probably the majority of jiu-jitsu schools. But now for me, it's all about designing certain games in certain scenarios and getting the kids to fight from those scenarios so that they're always getting used to the live resistance. And I think it's made a huge change in my kids' classes and in my adult classes. I do live games in the junior and senior kids. I do it for recreational and competitive students. I do it from people of all ages. I do it for fundamentals classes. And not to say that I don't show techniques, because I'm not that far on the other side of the spectrum where I'm like, I never show techniques. I do, but I will show a technique, maybe we'll practice it, and then we'll immediately start adding resistance. So again, I think that approach, when we're talking about skills and building best reactions, I think the ecological approach is the best way. And mathematically, you're going to burn more calories. You're going to get more of a workout. It's more exhausting mentally and physically. I just think it's a better way to train, honestly, for the most part. Okay. And especially for kids. So I'll just put them in okay, you're now stuck in a reverse half guard. The guy's got the belt grip. Bottom player try to sweep, top player try to pass. Go, right? Submissions are on, or maybe they're not. It depends how you want to design the games. I think it's a great way to teach kids, and it is fun. It's a game-based style where they have to think and problem solve. And no matter, you could show me a kid with the worst ADHD, and I've got a couple of them, or autism, whatever. They have mental barriers or whatever. You put them in a live situation and you tell them to just scrap, and a lot of them respond extremely well to that. They don't respond well to putting them on a wall and making them watch a technique and then trying to regurgitate the technique. And then, okay, now we roll for the last 15 minutes of class. It's like, no, the whole class is live. Figure it out. Work your way out. Okay, I would do this a little bit. Try again, right? And you know what I mean? So the live gameplay and the live resistance, I think, it's the best. All right. Okay. Be time efficient. So again, like with the ecological approach, use your time wisely. Try and get as much out of your time as possible. Don't dick around. Don't dilly-dally in class. There's only so many minutes in an hour, right? And a lot of these classes are an hour long. I basically blink and my kids' class is over. And it's so fun to teach senior kids because they're starting to do some pretty advanced stuff, and just watching them scrap is so exciting. Every day when that class ends, I wish it could go on another hour. It's that much fun. So I'll also say, for all the instructors out there, and I've known a couple of them who they're like, yeah, I want to have my academy one day, but I don't want to teach kids. That's going to be a pain in the ass. Is it a pain in the ass? Sometimes. However, it's necessary to run a business. And once you get the kids to a certain level, it's a lot of fucking fun. Teaching kids is awesome. All right. I would also say, like, especially for younger kids, just emphasize positional skills. So submission escapes, pinning escapes, getting them used to be on the bottom, chest to chest, and finding ways to recovering their guard, right? I personally always emphasize guard retention and, like I said, pin and submission escapes first for beginners and for new kids, because if you build that foundation, I believe it follows them all the way through their journey. Okay. And other people have different philosophies, but that's what I think is really important. And if they always have these positional skills, if they can always recover from a chest to chest half guard, if they can always escape side control, or if they're confident when they're caught in mount, that's a huge asset to anyone, but especially kids going into a competition. So they don't feel so helpless when they're getting crushed chest to chest, right? Teaching them how to deal with that. And again, basically multiple times a week, I take kids, doesn't matter what age, and I put them in bottom half guard. I put them in bottom mount. I put them in bottom side control, pinning positions. And I say, you have to work your way out. I'll let them do a round, and then we'll come in and I'll say, okay, guys, here's a couple mistakes I saw. Here's a couple things that we can try to do differently. Let's try again. Then we just try again. I don't get them to necessarily drill a knee elbow escape, right? And maybe it's because we're at the point where these kids already know how to do a knee elbow escape, but I kind of just show them and then I say, okay, let's try again. And it's up to them to sort of self-organize, right? So, okay, this is pretty cool. I don't know if a lot of gyms do this, but I will try to empower the kids to take on a referee role. So if we do mock matches, let's say it's competition class or whatever, I try to tell my students, okay, we're going to learn the rules so much that you need to do like a mock match. Like you need to be a referee and you're in charge of these two. So you need to keep score, right? And by enforcing this in the kids, first of all, they think it's pretty cool that they're in a position of power. But second of all, it helps them really understand the rule set. Again, I'm big on emphasizing the rules. Shout out to IBJJF Tutorials. I think it's one of the best YouTube channels out there for this type of information. It's the YouTube channel that I used when I was going to become a referee, or learning how to referee, I should say. And I always tell my kids, guys, watch 2 videos a day. They're like 3 minutes long each. Just go on YouTube. If your parents let you, watch IBJJF Tutorials, and then you come in and you're in charge of matches. So they alternate between competing in these mock matches in the gym and being a referee for these mock matches. And it makes them think, it makes them see jiu-jitsu in a different way. I think it's good for for kids, for adults. It's just good all around. Even if they don't want to compete, I think it's a good thing because they really understand where their scores come from. And that's so important. I think when we're teaching kids jiu-jitsu, we're not just teaching them like armbar from the guard, how to do a strangle, but teach like, okay, here's how you actually score. Here's how the game of jiu-jitsu is played. And then it gives context to every single thing you do. So we do that with the refereeing. So, okay. Also, don't underestimate kids' abilities to learn high level shit like barambolos, crab rides. Last week we were using crab rides and barambolos. We're making games from these positions. So starting upside down, partner's feet over their head, and you're grabbing their hips. And okay, go ahead, take the back. Let's go from here. And then they would try and fail miserably. And then I'd bring everyone back and I'd say, okay, here's a way that we can get to a twister hook. Here's a way that we can get to a leg drag. Here's a way that we can use the scissor wedge to take the back, and then go again, try again, right? And then they actually pick it up super quick because maybe not at the lower levels like the young kids, but kids 10 and up are very capable of reaching high levels in athletics at a super young age. They can do it quickly, but you got to give them that ability to do it. I remember talking to one of my friends who owns a gym, and he was saying, yeah, for kids, We do all the basics. It's all fundamentals. It's closed guard, it's half guard, right? And some open guard. We don't go fancy on that. That's great. And I think for competition, that's also really great. But high level shit works if done well. And if your opponents have never seen it, like if you can teach your kids how to do a berimbolo, and other kids in that division that they're going to be competing in have no idea what to do when they're getting berimboloed, it's a huge weapon that you can use. The kids get way better at taking the back when you teach them crab rides and berimbolos. It's just they find the back, right? So I don't like the idea of holding kids back because they might not be ready to learn something like a berimbolo or a crab ride. I think it's, you give them fun shit to deal with and show them fun stuff and let them play with it. And it's amazing what they can do. I think like omoplata is another example. Omoplata not allowed in IBJJF. So many moves not allowed in IBJJF at the younger ages. But man, I made my kids go into omoplata position and I said, go live from there. And they're doing crazy shit. They're following their opponents. They're switching to arm bars. They're figuring it out. They're solving the puzzle. So introduce this high level shit to your kids. Okay. Make sure that you're identifying common mistakes. This is in the training room and in competition. Make sure that you always take note as a coach of the common mistakes you see, because if kids keep making the same mistake, or you're seeing some kind of vulnerable aspect to everyone's game, it's important to address it and say, hey, this, let's not let this happen again. Let's learn from this. I saw this mistake and I think we can do this better, and then try again. Also make sure that you simulate the competition atmosphere. Sometimes occasionally I will put on like Brazilian soccer arena sounds and pipe it through the speakers as the kids are doing mock matches, just to kind of get them used to the idea of a crowd. Is it 100% necessarily? No, but it's cool. And we want to simulate that game day competition as much as possible. We want to try and get nerves out of the kids, and sometimes train them to exhaustion. So I sometimes will get them to do like 10 or 15 burpees and then they go right into a round, something like that, right? Just to get their heart rate up and to fight when they're uncomfortable, and try and simulate those nerves, or simulate when everyone's watching them compete in mock matches. And then lastly, I'd recommend cross training too. So whether that means training at another gym, if your kids have friends at other gyms, conditioning, things like that. Some kids start lifting weights at a younger age. I know some people said, oh, that'll stunt your growth. I don't think that's true. I'm not a professional, but I do think that there is, conditioning and strength and conditioning training that we can do to help kids get to the next level within reason, right? Not asking a kid to go in and deadlift 300 pounds, but, getting used to the idea of lifting weights and doing pull-ups and things like that, I think is good for kids. All right, let's talk about mindset for a sec. So the mindset of, a kid who's getting ready to compete. So I say it almost every single episode, Kaizen mindset. Kaizen mindset is the idea of using habits on a regular basis to improve systems and overall performance every day. So whatever it is in life you're trying to do, jiu-jitsu, cooking, weightlifting, whatever, you're trying to learn something new every day. You're trying to improve your systems every day. You're trying to improve the process and just become better constantly. And that is really Kaizen mindset in a nutshell. I think it's important for these kids. I said, make jiu-jitsu fun. Make sure that you really foster a love of learning in your training room. Because if you give the kids, if you let them love learning, if you really give them that, they're never going to not want to go to training. They're always going to be motivated to go to training because they love to learn. And even better, especially with some of the older kids at a certain age, they might start showing desire to teach, which I think is really exciting when kids really want to step into a mentorship role and start teaching other kids. And plus, it's like free labor for you, right? You have helpers around the room of higher ranked, trusted students who are super passionate. It's nothing but good. It's nothing but good for everyone. And then eventually, who knows, maybe we can talk about careers in the martial arts industry eventually, but having kids loving to learn and eventually teach, is super healthy for any jiu-jitsu gym, and it will help you in the long run. Okay. I also think it's important. Okay. So it's important to be honest with these kids about their abilities. So if a kid is, you know, for lack of a better word, not very fucking good, and they want to go into a competition and you know that they're not prepared, I think it's important as the coach to be honest with them and say, hey, we still have work to do. I'm never going to tell a kid who wants to compete that no, you shouldn't and you're not allowed. But I will say, hey, just so you know, I don't think you're ready for it yet. But I'll never just leave it at that, because that's not being a good coach. I would say, here are things we can work on. You know, let's come up with a strategy that will get you ready to compete on a competition. So be honest with them about their skills on the mats, but also, and this can be a bit of a touchy subject, but maturity. So, you know, I've had situations where I have students who they're so good in the training room, their jiu-jitsu's great, but they cry. Okay, I'm not going to say crying's good or bad. I'm not going to say that I think crying is a weakness or anything like that. However, I have seen students who are winning matches and they're doing really, really well, and the nerves get to be too much and they just break down and start crying, and then they lose because they get DQ'd. Okay, kids crying on the mat, it's a DQ. It's a forfeit. It's over. So it's a maturity thing. You can't really have kids going into competition when they're big criers. And some kids in the training room cry more than others. And it's like I said, it's not right or wrong. They're just kids. And you know, you really are asking a lot of them. You're putting your kids in a program where they're getting the fuck beat out of them. They're getting strangled. Their faces are getting scratched. You know, it's rough. Jiu-jitsu makes you tough. And not everyone takes it the same way. Sometimes kids cry. However, if there's a kid who is constantly crying in the training room, and now he wants to do a competition, and I've had to say this before, we need to get a grip on that first, because it's a maturity issue. We need to make sure that, you know, that you're not going to sign your kid up. They go through training, they go to the competition, they're doing well, and then all of a sudden they just break down and cry. That does happen. Kids cry at every single tournament. I've seen every single tournament I've been to, kids cry. So we need to really make sure that we're not just good on a technical level, but also we're prepared mentally for competition. And that a lot of the time, I prefer that my students aren't crying in competition. I'll be honest. All right. Mindset. I think, you know, ideally, if you're passionate about getting your kids to compete, hopefully you as the coach have done some competitions as well. I think it's important to talk about your personal experiences in competitions, times where you were scared, times when you doubted yourself, times when you overcame challenges and unforeseen circumstances, and, you know, talk to them about the difficulties of competing, and you know, try to bring it back to where you overcame or you learned from it. It was a positive experience. You were scared, but it was still worth it, and you still like to do it again. And it never really becomes easy. It's always hard, but maybe it just becomes easier to manage. Like these types of things, kids respond really well to that. And, you know, you may or may not know it. As a coach and a mentor, you're a huge source of inspiration for these kids. So they hear stories about how their coach was scared or whatever, and that's really, really important. And be sort of transparent about your experiences. You know, don't hold things back. Don't say, no, I wasn't scared, or, you know, I wasn't concerned, or, you know, don't try and be something you're not. Be honest with the kids and tell them, you know what, I was scared, or after I lost, yeah, it really sucked, and it wasn't fun for me to lose, and I lost because of this reason. So I know next time, you know, I learned from that. Make everything about a learning experience. Everything is a piece of that will take you closer to Kaizen. Like every failure, every success is all to get better for tomorrow, to make yourself better for the next competition. There's always a next competition. And, you know, just because you lost a competition or because you won, you should never dwell on that win or that loss, right? If you lost, get over it, learn from it, try again. If you won, enjoy the moment, let it go, try again. I think it's really important to discuss that competition is not just about winning, even though winning is important. a lot of it is about the character development. That is really what I believe, especially with these kids, they get out of competition. I get a lot of that out of competition, and winning is obviously the goal, but the process and the struggle and the stress and the difficulty of training and preparation and going out there and doing it, that builds character, that gives you life experience, and that's what I think honestly is the best benefit of competition. I think it's important, like, for each kid compete to develop a personal game plan. Every kid's going to be different, just like every student is different. They all have different tukuiwaza, favorite techniques. They all have weaknesses. Always develop a personal game plan based on that student, their strengths, their weaknesses, their body types, their potential opponents, the rule set. These are all factors that have to go in, and you as the coach need to kind of spin it all together and come up with like a game plan. Okay, what are we going to do? You like to pull guard? Okay, well, let's get to guard quickly. What if we pull guard and they grab our leg at the same time? Now we're down 2 points at the beginning of the match and we're playing catch up. Give them these scenarios to think about so that they're not shocked when it happens, and they have a plan B or a plan C. Each kid is going to need a personal game plan as it is, right? Also, in terms of Kaizen, I think it's important to just encourage daily habits and develop routines, like positive habits, obviously. So studying is a huge one. I think kids can really benefit from just study. That's why I offer an online academy. There's a kids section there. They can watch the adult lessons. They can watch my competition footage, YouTube. There's infinite resources nowadays. There's no reason why there's no reason why there should be a lack of information for any practitioner. And I just say, hey, daily habits, study 10 minutes a day. How hard is it to go on YouTube and watch 10 minutes of jiu-jitsu a day? Learn one new thing. Kaizen mindset, right? Develop a routine. Okay, we're going to go to jiu-jitsu 4 days this week. I'm going to go to jiu-jitsu 5 days. I'm going to go to jiu-jitsu 3 days and lift once and run once, something like that. Start putting pressure on these kids and say, hey, like, what are you doing to get ready for this competition? Oh, Coach Matt, I'm going to class. Yeah, I know, but like we need more. There needs to be more than just an hour a day. Like, when you leave here, are you thinking about jiu-jitsu? Are you thinking about things that you did wrong at the last competition? Are you thinking about things that you did right last week in training or last class? What is one thing that you did right? Start thinking about jiu-jitsu more. Start developing a routine to always self-reflect on your strengths and your weaknesses. So it gives you an idea of what you need to improve at. Like, these are all the things that I try to talk to my competitors about. Competition is coming up. Ask them about their weight. Ask them about their weight class. Are you able to make weight? Is everything good on that? That can be a stressful thing for some people. I think for kids, usually competitions, at least locally, they're pretty lenient about missing a couple pounds, but check with the parents, check with the kids. Are you on weight? Do you need help making weight? You need to cut a pound? I recommend a salt bath, right? It works really great. It's comfortable. You lose a pound and, you get to compete, right? No one wants to miss weight. And there's not a lot of local competitions that will DQ kids when they miss weight. But if your kid comes in like 5 pounds over, they deserve to get DQ'd. And honestly, the parent and the coach were kind of neglecting that. I always ask kids when I know that they're competing, are you on weight? Either they give me a yes and I'm okay, good. Or it's no. And it's okay. Do we need to move divisions or are you able to make the weight, right? This is important. Ask the student how they're feeling mentally and physically. Are you exhausted? Are you finding yourself wanting to go to training the next day? Is training too hard? Are you feeling run down? Are you feeling good? Are you feeling excited about this? Are you nervous? These are all things that it's good to talk with the kids so you can kind of clear the air. And they might say, yeah, I'm terrified. And that's okay. And that's when I can start saying, you know what? I'm terrified too. Every time I go out there, and I'm going to likely be competing right next to you. So, we can be scared together type thing. And sometimes it can give them comfort, right? I think it's really important to do post-tournament reflections, just like I say, post-class reflections. So after class, talking to kids saying, okay, when you go home tonight, think about something you did well in class today. Think about something that you could have done better. Same thing with competition. Because competition, I look at, from the preparation, the warm up, the actual doing the competing, and then after, it's all kind of like a formula that you're constantly updating. You're constantly trying to modify your formula to make it more and more accurate, to have less blunders during the day. And I always say, always reflect on the last competition, reflect on the last training session. What would you change? What would make you more effective? What would make you more increase your chances of victory? And sometimes competition is trial and error, right? So this is important. I've had competitions where in between divisions, I drank too much and I ate too much. And then I went into my next division feeling just like a slug. Okay. And I said to myself, okay, well, I'll never do that again. I know not to do that. In the moment I was super, super thirsty or hungry, but then I ended up regretting it. So it's things like that. Or with my gi check and me not making my gi and my rash guard not making the cut at IBJJF. It's like, well, now I know that. I would change that, right? There's always things you can do to make the next tournament more smooth. Okay, I recommend holding these kids to high standards. Competitors, I generally hold to higher standards. I think this is a pretty common thing. So whether it's like training, their attitude in class and at the tournament, their attendance. Okay. I don't mean holding high standards, meaning like you have to win. That's not it. But I want to make sure that if there's a kid who's competing, that they're coming to the gym multiple times a week. I don't want a kid who's coming once every other week or once a week and they're like, oh, okay, I'm going to do a competition. It's like, yeah, but you're not even training and you're representing the gym. So until you can commit more, I don't recommend you compete, right? That's just my personal opinion. But I like to hold the kids to high standards in training, right? So no goofing around, no chit-chatting with your partner. A little bit's okay, but I need to see you're working. No distracting people, helping people, right? Listening, having a mature attitude, taking it seriously. If a kid is saying, okay, I'm going to commit to this competition, Coach Matt, I'm going to do it. It's like, I want to see a demeanor in class that shows maturity, that shows that they're being serious about this because it's a commitment. They're not just going in willy-nilly and it's just like another day in the gym. They're just going to roll and see what happens. It's like, no, let's take it more seriously than that. Let's hold them to a standard that's higher, because as soon as a student tells me, hey, I want to compete, my standards immediately become more difficult for them. It's like, okay, I expect more of you now. You better be working hard, better not be slacking, better be studying, all these things. But that does not mean emphasizing the result. Doesn't mean that winning, if you don't win, you're fucking dead to me. That's not it. I expect more maturity and more serious behavior. And like I said, talking about like potential careers in the martial arts industry, especially if you find kids that are interested in teaching. If you can sell jiu-jitsu to kids and make it fun and make teaching fun for them, that's going to follow them throughout their entire journey. And it's going to help you as a business person, because you will have this army of students who have your back and they're watching your classes. When you're turning around, you can't watch all the kids. They're there helping you, right? And they become some pretty competent coaching assistants. All right. Another thing I really recommend for kids going into competition, I mean, I recommend this for everyone, but study your opponents, do your homework on your opponents that could be in your division so that you know who you're fighting, you know what kind of game they play. If there's match footage on Smooth Comp, sometimes you can see records of these people. Not everyone. Some people have private profiles, but you could go into Smooth Comp and see, okay, I'm fighting this kid next weekend and he's got 30 wins and 10 losses, and he's lost all of his matches by points. Maybe he's hard to submit, but we can outscore him positionally. Or maybe he's won all of his matches by armbar submission. It's like, oh, this kid's got good arm bars. Like, try to do your homework a little bit. And again, that's gonna require some help from the parents as well. But you know who's in your division beforehand. You have an understanding of what their game is like, so you can sort of develop a game plan for them. Oh, if I get past this athlete, I'm probably going to fight the next athlete. I know he's good at this. Not looking past the first guy, but I'm already thinking about game plans for both of these people. So it's like a strategic game of chess, essentially. I really recommend that kids watch the highest level athletes and sort of copy what they're doing. So, um, learning about the highest level kids, a lot of them come from AOJ. Um, what are they doing to win competitions constantly? Why are they always ending up on the podium? And introducing your competitive students to these kids, social media, look up this kid, or even introducing them to like the best in our sport in general. Like, check out Gordon Ryan. Hey kids, check out Marcelo Garcia. Check out Rafa Mendez. Just go on YouTube and type in highlight reel. Introduce them to like these figureheads in the sport, and they will now have another source of inspiration, and they'll see the things that they're doing. They'll be like, man, I want to be like that. What is he doing? Oh, Marcelo Garcia, X guard master. Oh, X guard. Like, and kids are capable of learning X guard. You just got to, again, teach them it properly and package it to them in a way that they can understand and reuse it. But show these kids, these figureheads in the sport, show them the best, the guys that are constantly reaching the podium, and say, okay, why are they there? Why are they always winning? How can we mimic them? How can we take what they're doing and use it to our advantage? Focus on techniques that work. Focus on techniques that always work at the highest levels, right? Don't show them shit that would never work. Essentially, that's just common sense for a coach when you're running a class. And also pay attention to how kids lose. Sometimes kids make the same mistakes. They miss an opportunity to do a knee elbow, or, someone's on their back and they could have escaped, but instead they turned the wrong way and they got their back taken again. Pay attention to how people lose, because that's going to breed growth. If you're intuitive enough as an instructor and you recognize these consistent, reoccurring losses, what is causing people to always lose matches, again, that gives us an idea as to what to avoid, how we can learn from other people's mistakes, how can we develop a game plan and even a training plan around success and avoid the things that lead us to losing matches. Lastly, I'll say is when you're studying opponents, I've always believed in building relationships. So if I go into a tournament and I'm fighting a guy and he's a good match, maybe I win, maybe I lose. After, I'll go up to him and be like, yo, man, like, where are you from? Should we train? Like this, you kind of meet people, you make friends, you network. Maybe you make friends with them or their teammates, and it's a positive experience overall. I can't tell you how many guys I've lost to that I've become friends with and train with them, because really we make each other better, especially at the local level. Shouldn't be looking at every other competitor on a local level as an enemy. You should be looking at them and like, hey, we're all here. We're local. We're competitors. We want to go and compete on the big stage. Why don't we help each other out? Why don't we train? Unless they're complete douchebags and you don't really want anything to do with them, I think it's a good idea to build friendships, build relationships. Let's talk about the day of the tournament. Okay, so we're building these little monster kid competitors, and now it's tournament day. I think it's important to plan out the entire day. Hopefully, as a coach, you've been to many tournaments, competed in tournaments, refereed at tournaments, coached at tournaments. Okay, it's important that you understand the ebb and flow of the tournament, and it's important that you can foresee or predict potential issues that are going to arise at a tournament. So leave lots of time. Make sure that the kids, usually kids fight first. They usually fight at like 9 a.m. Okay. Make sure the kids wake up early enough that they can get to the venue without rushing. If they want to do a warm up, they can do that, right? Oh, did you eat breakfast? No, I didn't. I don't like to eat breakfast before I compete. Okay, that's cool. I don't either. Did you eat breakfast? Yeah, I did. I had a big breakfast. Do you feel good when you do that? Yeah, I love to eat before a competition. Okay, that's great. Like these are all things that are going to vary from student to student, and it's important that we update our tournament ritual so that we have the best outcome consistently. And at the end of the day, we always want to leave more time if possible than to be rushed, right? Being rushed to the mats when you're not prepared, or you're still sort of mentally trying to get in the zone. Really important to bring food and drinks, because tournaments generally are a long ass day. And I don't mean the type of, food and drinks like junk food and garbage. I mean like, stuff that can hydrate, things with good carbohydrates and, whatever good food is to you, I would just recommend, like, don't bring dad's cookies and fucking soda pop, bring BioSteel or coconut water or good quality water and fruit and things like this. Hard boiled eggs. I don't like to eat before I compete personally, but I would just recommend, like, sugar is good, but I would be selective as to where I get my carbohydrates if I was going to, give my kid food before a competition. Try to make it, I would say, whole foods, less processed foods, nutritious foods. And I would make sure, let's not overeat before we compete, because it's going to, especially when we're doing things like jiu-jitsu or grappling, we want to be a little bit hungry. I always recommend being hungry before a competition because it kind of stimulates that lizard brain mentality in my mind. It's like, okay, I'm hungry. I need to hunt. I'm extra focused. I'm looking for the next meal. A tiger or a lion, I guess, I don't know what kind of metaphor it would be, that is satiated and full is a shitty hunter. Okay. A lion that is extremely hungry is a fantastic hunter because his life depends on it. He doesn't want to starve, right? It's kind of the same thing in a tournament for me. Plus, if you want to go upside down and do, different moves, I think it's important to not have so much fucking food in your stomach. Okay, I'll just talk about, like, your role as a coach on tournament day. So again, I love the analogy Danaher talks about on, like, one of Lex Friedman podcasts, where he says, like, some people get the roles confused when they're coaching at a tournament. They are trying to be a good coach and a good cornerman, but they end up being a cheerleader, essentially. I discussed this on one of the previous episodes, one of the first episodes I did on the podcast, being an effective corner. Guys can go check that out. Again, kids actually respond well to cheerleading, believe it or not. But when I'm giving advice, I want to give concise advice, accurate advice that can get the job done at the time. Yes, I'm there to motivate and to, be their mental support and to help them out. But at the same time, that is not really going to win matches. Truthfully, like Danaher says, the coaching's already been done. And when the kid goes out there, he might not even hear your voice. But as Danaher says, he will have heard your voice from hearing you for hours and hours and hours in the training room. So he should know what to do potentially. Okay. This, in theory, right? They should know what you want them to do from the hours in the training room. Now with kids, maybe not. Maybe kids aren't as developed. However, there's a difference between just screaming and pumping the kid up and, getting them overly excited and just being calm and giving them direct advice that you want them to focus on. So I think it's important to toe the line between both. We do want to motivate. We do want to energize and get them pumped up. But at the same time, you don't want to overdo it. And we want to focus on, it's not about us. It's not about you, the cornerman, pumping them up. It's about them finding a way to get the job done in the most efficient way possible so that they can get ready for the next match so they can win the gold medal or whatever, right? That's the idea. On tournament day, especially if you have lots of kids competing, or maybe you're like me, you like to referee or even compete as well. I wear a lot of different hats on tournament day. I think it's important to have multiple coaches. So whether that's parents that you can kind of mentor a little bit into coaching, or you have other competitors that have agreed to help coach, or you have other kids coaches that are able to play the role of a cornerman during a tournament, you may get yanked in multiple different directions at a tournament, and you have to find a way to get someone in that kid's corner. I've had tournaments where I've had like 4 students on at once. I can only be in one fucking mat at once. And honestly, it breaks my heart as a coach because I want to be able to watch each one of the kids perform. I want to be able to see what they did right and what they did wrong so that I remember, I have a photographic memory of them doing that. And the truth is, guys, you just can't, especially when you have such a big team. So you do need to empower other people on the team to be a good corner and to kind of have your back on these busy tournament days when you're running around. Sometimes it gets real crazy, right? Sometimes you'll be standing around for a couple hours, nothing's going on, we're chilling, and then all of a sudden, all the kids are up at once. You're like, shit, we got like 3 or 4 kids fighting right. Okay, you take that mat, I'll be over here. Okay, we got to, and you as the head coach, you need to orchestrate all this. You're the one who is delegating tasks and saying, okay, I'll get Oliver over there, you get Benny over there, right? Like, as long as someone's there to support the kids, it's much easier for them to compete. I always like to have a corner when I can. It's calming to hear someone in my corner that knows my game. But imagine how much more effective that is for a kid, right? You're asking them to go out there and fight another kid who's trained hard. Everyone's scared, everyone's nervous. Just to have that calming voice in the corner is it's a huge benefit for sure. Like I said previously, predicting potential issues, gis not working, missing weight, and now you have to cut a pound, being late, right? For traffic, the long waits of tournaments. If you have been a lot of tournaments, you realize it's a lot of waiting around. So it's important to keep kids occupied, if that means bringing a book, bringing an iPad, bringing music, something where they can kind of put their mind at ease as they're waiting to go into battle. That's important to plan for these things, potential issues, surprises, and long ass days. Okay. And again, give constructive criticism and positive feedback to these kids after the tournament. Always reassure them, hey, you know what? I'm proud of you. Like, even if they lose their first fight horribly, say, dude, you just did something that a lot of kids will never get to do. You just put it out on the line. You walked out there in front of everyone. Your parents are watching. I'm watching. And you fought. Like, even if they lost, be like, do you realize how actually impressive that is? Like, that experience lives with you forever. Most people never get to go into a combat situation against someone and try and strangle them unconscious or try and break their arm. And for me, it's a very special thing. And to see kids overcome and to see kids go through like really hard losses and then see them at another time achieve great victories. Like it's almost making me emotional just thinking about it. Always just never put the win ahead of the process and always tell them, I'm proud of you. Like, even if it's not the result we want, there's always another tournament, there's always another tournament. And if you won, let's enjoy this victory shortly. And then let's get back into the gym tomorrow or on Monday or whatever. Let's look ahead. Let's not just say, yeah, I won this tournament. I won a gold medal. Real champions put it behind them to get ready for the next one. There's always another one. There's always, especially if you're champion, there's always someone who's planning to kick your ass. There's always someone who's watching you and saying, that's the person to beat. There's always a target on your back when you're at the top, right? So it's important to just move on and say, hey, we got more work to do. The last topic is parents. So I'll say this. Any drama that's happened in my school generally has come from parents. Parents are amazing. I would say for, every 100 parents I get, maybe I get one parent that's difficult and we have issues with. Okay. This is just inevitable. This is inevitable as a gym owner. You're going to meet people of all different backgrounds, all different stages of life. And there's going to be people who are more difficult than other people. Then there's going to be people that are fucking awesome. I'm very fortunate at my school. I've created like really tight connections with some of the parents there. I know I can rely on them if I can't make it to a tournament. And there has been situations like that where I couldn't make it to a tournament in Washington and a group of parents took their kids. There was like 7 kids and like 4 parents coaching. These parents are white belts and they did a fantastic job and the kids came away with like double gold medals and things like that, right? So developing a relationship with these parents and leaning on them at times and trying to really build that team environment. Like, hey, we're in this together. Like, I'm going to invest in your kid. I want to see the best from your kid, but can you help me with this? Often they are willing to help. They want to help you. They want to be there for you and they feel great being a part of the team. Okay. There's a lot of parents that like to do this. And my recommendation is, even if, ideally they're training, ideally we can get them to come into the program and help train. But if they want to help at tournaments, it's such an asset. Okay. And I've even had some parents where it's like, okay, you want to, if you come in and help with the kids class, you will be my extra set of eyes on these kids and you'll sort of pick up the stuff as we do it. Your kid can train for free. For me, it makes sense. Okay. Maybe for some of you out there, you're like, oh, that, you're going to leave a lot of money on the table. Maybe, but also you can't really put a price on good help. Someone who is invested in your program and has the same goals that you have, that is really, really valuable. So developing relationships with these parents, very, very important. And another thing that I'm horrible at, I'll just be transparent there, is try to use their names. Try to remember their names. Again, this is like a business practice that goes a long way. A lot of successful business people tell you this. Try to remember people's names because that is huge. You remember someone's names, it helps you build a better relationship. And remember that these parents are people. They all have different skills. They all come from different backgrounds. Skill exchange with these people. You never know when you might need a plumber. And, oh, this person's a plumber. This person's an electrician. This person cuts hair, blah, blah, blah. That's one of the greatest parts of jiu-jitsu I found is like the people that I meet they're from all different walks of life. And you can help them. They can help you. Sometimes I give their kids private lessons. They, do the plumbing in my bathroom, right? Things like that. Like that is everywhere in jiu-jitsu, but you'll never find it if you don't open up and have relationships with these people, right? So treat these people like people, have personal relationships. Don't just treat them as like a credit card number, someone who's helping you keep the lights on. I think it's much more valuable and builds a stronger team environment if you become friends with these people, if essentially, right? Not to say you'll be friends with everyone, but there's definitely going to be some gems in there. All right. Make sure that you like build these individual relationships with the students as well as the parents, and you really invest in their kids. If you invest in their kids and the parents see your passion and they see that you are putting everything you can towards their kids' success and they feel that their value of their money is worth it and they see success, like if they see their kids can go to competitions and they can be successful, that is super valuable. And parents will just love that. They will feel like, well, this is the place. Why would I go anywhere else? Like my kid's winning. They're enjoying it. They're learning. The coach cares about the kid. They'll travel to the States I'm a Canadian, sorry. They'll travel to other countries and other cities to watch them compete, just to watch. That's huge. That's, what else could you ask for of a coach, right? And of course, be open to questions and comments and suggestions to these parents. I have an open door policy. Sometimes it can get annoying. You got parents messaging you like, oh, can you message the tournament organizer and get little Billy to this division or whatever? It's like, you know what? You got to do it. You are the middleman between a tournament organizer and the parent. Or if the parent has a question about the tournament, you have to be receptive to that. If a parent has a comment or a suggestion about how they think things could be improved or concerns that they might have, a good way to get them to leave the club is to ignore them or to show them that you don't care. Make sure you invest in them. You take their comments, suggestions seriously, work with the parents and understand that, they're probably not trying to make your life more difficult or more complex, but they have genuine concerns that should be addressed, right? So, I recommend having an open door policy with the parents. And I have a parents group chat separate from my adult group chat. That's where I do a lot of communications for the gym. Also, I think it's important just as an ambassador of BJJ, you're a gym owner or an instructor or whatever, you're a coach, to encourage the growth of jiu-jitsu overall as a sport. So not even just with their kids, but in a community level, right? Raising the level of jiu-jitsu in the city, make it a known priority that you care about the city or the region that you're in, and you care about the level of jiu-jitsu, that you're trying to take jiu-jitsu to a new level where there's more opportunity for kids, there's more chances to compete, there's a bigger stage to compete, maybe there's money in the future. Always know that encouraging the growth of BJJ means a bigger pie. It means more for everyone. And I think that is just a great thing. Parents might not even know much about the sport in general. They might not know about the other cities, the other clubs in the city, But if they see that, hey, like you're that passionate that you're just trying to take the sport to a different level from what it is, that's huge. It shows your passion. It shows that you care about it. And you don't just care about your own club, but you care about the art and the sport. And you're putting that first. That passion is contagious and people respond very well to it. Make sure that if you can, and I can't always do this, as I mentioned earlier, try to show up at the tournaments. When the kids are competing, if you can be there, be there. Okay. That's my priority. And Saturday is generally tournament day. That is my family day, but I miss a lot of family days because I work. I got to go to tournaments. And being at tournaments and being there for kids, again, it just reinforces that bond between the student, between the parent and yourself. It shows the community that you're involved. Maybe you're refereeing, maybe you're just volunteering, maybe you're just there and people know who you are. You start building relationships. If you're at tournaments, it is it's really good to show up to tournaments and obviously you just want to be there to support your kids, right? I also recommend, encourage team travel. So if you have a pretty serious competition team, it's likely that these parents of these competitive kids will want to travel to different cities in the area, maybe even go far away to compete. Like I'm going to Vegas with a couple of kids and a couple of teammates at the end of August to do the Jiu Jitsu con. It's going to be fucking awesome. And it's every time you go and travel with your team, it becomes a team building environment. You gain a stronger bond and you come back and you're like, man, like that was such a fun trip. Okay, let's get ready for the next one, right? Let's all grow as a team. I already talked about difficult parents, and sometimes parents can be difficult. Sometimes people will rub you the wrong way. There's no going about it any other way. It's just going to happen, especially if you're a jiu-jitsu instructor. You're having random people come in. They want to learn jiu-jitsu. They want their kids to learn jiu-jitsu. Eventually, you're going to find people who are difficult. My recommendation, always be transparent. Always treat them with kindness. Always give them an opportunity to leave. Hey, if you don't like this program, I'm not going to lock you into your contract. Feel free to go, right? Like, what else can you do? You try and run your program as best you can. You try to have the highest standards you can. You try to be a kind, friendly person. If it's still not enough, sometimes you can't satisfy everyone. But never, in my recommendation, try not to hold grudges. Try not to take anything personally, because sometimes things can get difficult with parents. And my recommendation is always try and have a good relationship with parents, even if they decide to go somewhere else. Try to keep things cordial. And lastly, social media. Now, this is a relatively new thing, of course, as we know, just like it's relatively new that kids that are like 5 years old are doing jiu-jitsu. If kids are getting super serious about jiu-jitsu and there's potential that they could go on the world stage, right? And we got a couple of kids in our gym that I think are at that level or could potentially be at that level. Have a conversation with the parents, discuss, is it smart to have a social media for this child? Obviously, if the kids are young, they probably don't have access to it. Hopefully not. But there is benefits to it. You can learn other kids. Like I mentioned earlier, you can study other high-level kids that your kid might potentially face. You can get your kid exposure as they get older, as they get into the teenage years, getting into super fights, getting potential sponsorships, cash prizes, things like that, being more known in the community. In my opinion, it's a overall positive thing, but that is for every parent to discuss with their family and for you to have that discussion with them. And a lot of parents don't want their kids on social media, and I totally understand that. However, I do have a couple of parents who run Instagram accounts for their young kids, and they're studying other competitors and they're trying to get their kid out there. They're trying to, show cool reels of their kids doing stuff and getting some traction there. My recommendation with social media is, even if you're against it, try not to just shut it out completely. I think there is value in it, and it's kind of the way that the world is going now. It's a common thing and kids are going to run into it eventually. So consider it if your child is a young, aspiring jiu-jitsu athlete. All right, guys, that's basically going to take us to the end of the show. Hope I covered it all, or at least the main aspects of, getting kids ready for competition. I just like to finish with a quote here. And I quote, this is from a I believe she's a Indian teacher from India. Her name is Kavita Bupta Ghosh, if I'm saying that correctly. And I say, quote, "The sign of great teaching is not in the child's marks or grades, but in the child's positive attitude towards learning," end quote. And this kind of harkens back to what I was saying earlier in the episode. If you can make the training fun, if you can make it fun for them to go to jiu-jitsu, and you can gain strong results in the process, and having the kids excited about learning, having the kids excited about jiu-jitsu and excited about teaching, that is infinitely more important than having a room where it's like, we have to win, that's it, and the emphasis is on the result, and we put the emphasis on the grades or the marks or the medals as it is. That might not be fun. Kids might eventually get burnt out and feel like there's too much pressure, okay? But if you get a kid that just loves going to jiu-jitsu, he loves the way you teach, he or she loves the way you teach, loves, the environment, and loves the daily struggle, and everyone embraces it together. And, that is super valuable. That is going to make sure that that kid keeps coming back for years to come. And really, when you're dealing with kids, you're going to realize after you put in about 5 to 10 years building a kids team, that you start to have kids at every single rank, and it becomes almost like a farm team. It's like a perpetual cycle. They come in as a young kid, they stick with you if you do your job, right? They stick with you through the gray belt, the yellow, all the way up until green belt. They get their blue belt from you. At this point, they're, a teenager. And then at that point, they're basically becoming young adults, and there's new kids constantly coming in. It becomes like a cycle. And the kids who are with you from day one are now mature and older, and they want to help. They want to give back to the younger kids. It becomes an ecosystem of perpetual, awesomeness for kids. And if you make it fun for these kids, they'll stick around, into their adult years, hopefully. And to be honest, it kind of terrifies me, because I have kids in my program and I'm rolling with them. I'm like, you're so fucking good that in 5, 6, 7, 8 years, I'm fucked. You're going to kill me. You're going to get bigger than me. You're already so good. And, hey, that's really all we can ask for as a coach, right? Is for our kids to be more successful than us, to be better competitors than we ever were. And I think it's damn possible when these kids are starting at like 5 years old, and it's super, super exciting. So that's always in the back of my mind as a coach, is watching these kids improve and thinking, I'm going to get my licks in while I can, because there's going to come a time when I'm really going to struggle with you. Anyways, guys, that's the show. Hope you enjoyed it. Again, links at the bottom where you can contact and support the show on Instagram, TikTok. You can reach us there. You can email me directly with questions and comments and all that good shit. Also, the online academy, that's the best place to support the show. Links in the bottom. Please sign up, guys. It's $10 a month. If you enjoy this show and you want to contribute, I don't have a Patreon. Please just go and sign up for the online academy, and I will keep giving you my best episodes that I can every week. And of course, my kids' book, Zara Can Do Jiu-Jitsu. Again, links at the bottom. Anyways, guys, that's all the time I have right now. I hope you enjoyed the show. And remember, the Essential Jiu-Jitsu podcast is everything you need to know about jiu-jitsu. Thank you for joining me, guys. All right. Bye-bye.